Welcome to The Explainer. So, if you're holding a mug of coffee right now, or hey, maybe you're already thinking about pouring your second cup of the day, you are absolutely going to want to pay close attention. Today, we're taking on a topic that has literally one of the most confusing health reputations in the world. Seriously, it's all over the place. But we're going to set the record straight and find some absolute clarity through structured, high quality evidence. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's dive into this. 2 billion, 250 million. That is the massive number of cups of coffee consumed globally every single day. Wrap your head around that. I mean, for some of us, it's this treasured morning ritual. For others, let's just be real, it's a pure, non-negotiable necessity just to survive the afternoon slump. But with a habit that's this universal, we really, actually need to understand what it's doing to our bodies. And that brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? Is coffee actually good for you? Or not? I know you've probably felt the exact same frustration I have reading the news, right? One decade, the headlines are screaming that coffee is going to stunt your growth and cause heart disease. And then the very next decade, you wake up and read that it's suddenly a miraculous superfood. It's enough to make anyone want to pull their hair out. But today, the flip-flopping stops.
To get us there, this explainer is basically going to act as your personal map. First up, we'll look at the great coffee confusion. Next, we'll explore the real health benefits based on modern science. Third, who should avoid it. Fourth, brewing for your health. And finally, we'll pour a cup of clarity to wrap it all up.
Section 1. The Great Coffee Confusion. So where exactly did this whole idea that coffee is bad for us even come from? Well, I was genuinely surprised to learn that early population studies had a massive, glaring blind spot. They didn't separate heavy coffee drinkers from heavy smokers. Because those two habits used to go hand in hand so often, researchers just looked at the data and incorrectly blamed coffee for the devastating health effects that were actually being caused by smoking. Crazy, right? And this brilliantly illustrates why modern research from 2020 to 2026 is so important. It finally adjusts for those lifestyle factors and tells a completely different story. Now, the other reason coffee got such a bad rap historically comes down to the way people used to actually make it. It's fascinating, but traditional brewing methods involved a whole lot of boiled, unfiltered coffee, and unfiltered coffee leaves in these specific compounds that actually do raise your cholesterol. So if you think about it, between the whole smoking mix-up and those old-school brewing methods, coffee was just completely and unfairly villainized.
Moving on to Section 2, the real health benefits.
This is where the modern research gets incredibly exciting. Modern science shows coffee is actually an absolute powerhouse for your organs. Starting right at the top, it protects the brain, showing a lower risk of Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Let's move to and see how this builds when we look at metabolic health. It drops your risk of type 2 diabetes by a staggering 20 to 30%. It's also basically a shield for your liver, reducing the risk of fatty liver and cirrhosis. Oh, and if you're an athlete, the caffeine increases adrenaline and fat burning, which directly improves your physical endurance. Just amazing stuff. But wait, it gets better. When we zoom out from specific organs and look at your entire lifespan, the data is just phenomenal. Large population studies consistently suggest that moderate coffee drinkers show a lower all-cause mortality rate. So simply put, moderate consumption is actually associated with helping you live a longer, healthier life. All right, Section 3. Who should avoid it? Now, I really want you to treat this data like a mirror and evaluate your own individual profile here. Because look, coffee is not some universal cure-all. If you have anxiety or a panic disorder, coffee might be more of a frenemy than an ally, because caffeine can severely intensify those symptoms. If you have uncontrolled high blood pressure, you really need to monitor it closely since caffeine does cause temporary spikes. And if you are pregnant, the medical consensus is clear. Limit your intake to 200 milligrams or less per day because of fetal sensitivity.
And a very, very firm note right here, children and teens must avoid coffee entirely. I know it might seem trendy for kids to grab those massive, sugary, blended coffee drinks, but their developing neurological systems are highly, highly sensitive to caffeine. It is a strict no-go for developing brains, no exceptions. Section 4, brewing for your health.
Okay, so we've established coffee can be great, but how you make it actually changes the biochemistry entirely. First up, the temperature battle. Hot coffee actually pulls out higher antioxidants from the beans, making it the overall winner for longevity and reducing inflammation. But on the flip side, if you happen to suffer from acid reflux or ulcers, cold brew is your absolute champion. It has a much lower acidity profile and provides a way smoother caffeine release, making it the clear-cut winner for sensitive stomachs. So the crucial point is, if you take away just one health fact from this entire explainer, please make it this one. Filter your coffee. Seriously, using a simple paper filter removes a compound called caffeine. If you drink unfiltered coffee, we're talking French press, Turkish, or boiled coffee, that caffeine stays right there in your cup. And it is wild to think about, but daily use of unfiltered coffee has actually been shown to raise your bad LDL cholesterol by 8 to 15%, all just by skipping a paper filter. So stick to drip, pour over, or an AeroPress for the absolute healthiest option.
And what about the whole organic debate? Look, organic coffee is fantastic. It means lower pesticide exposure, it's obviously better for the environment, and it often has higher antioxidants because it's shade-grown. So it's a really great choice, especially if you're a heavy drinker. But rest assured, non-organic coffee is still perfectly safe. Actually, the high heat roasting process burns off the vast majority of any chemical residues anyway.
Which brings us to Section 5, the cup of clarity. Let's synthesize all this data into a final verdict, just for you. Honestly, you might want to mentally screenshot this because it is the ultimate summary of everything we've covered today. If you're a healthy adult, coffee is beneficial. Just try to keep it filtered, hot, and black. Got stomach issues? Switch to cold brew. High cholesterol? You got to avoid the French press. Dealing with anxiety? Swap to decaf or limit your intake. And for our older adults, enjoy your cup, knowing it is actively helping to reduce cognitive decline. But before we wrap up today, I want to pivot for just a moment, because coffee, well, it's more than just a beverage. According to the Hale Institute, it actually serves as a really powerful metaphor for how we live our modern lives. Read this quote with me. "We consume things without understanding them. We inherit myths without questioning them." Man, how true is that? We literally feared coffee for decades simply because we didn't take the time to examine the evidence properly. Now, what's really interesting about this is that asking questions about your morning coffee is ultimately an exercise in discernment. It forces us to ask a much bigger, much more important life question. Do I make choices based on evidence or on assumptions? Figuring out the truth about coffee requires the courage to think clearly and to really question the everyday habits we just blindly follow. So let's leave it right here. Coffee is neither an angel nor a villain. It's a powerful plant. The real secret, it lies in knowledge, moderation, and self-awareness. The question isn't whether coffee is good or bad. The question is coffee good or bad for you? And now with the evidence clearly laid out, you finally have the clarity to answer that for yourself. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.